Welcome to the family with Tracey. Hi, I'm Tracey Millbrook. The purpose of this show is to address those dysfunctional issues that have impacted and plagued families from one generation to the next. That's right, those things that are so heinous, those things that people are less likely to talk about, those things that are just too embarrassing to tote around. They feel like a big cave, toting them around from one place to the next, like to the school or to the workhouse. Even on social outings, you feel like you're so big and that people know all the things that are around you and how you've been impacted. All of the shame, hurt, and defeat, that is not of God. This show, The Family with Tracey, will address those issues, expose those issues, and to throw out a lifeline of hope for you to let you know that you are not alone. Also to let you know that this is not your destiny that God has for you. You may have been impacted, but you know something? God is the potter. He will start you all over again. He will dress you up. He will also cover you with His love in such a way that those scars will be used as badges of honor to let the enemy know you don't want to come this way again. Another thing too concerning the family with Tracey is that there would be different family members and different type of dysfunction highlighted, but also to let you know that in case you know someone who may be impacted, you shift them this way. You shift them to the Word of God. You take some responsibility. You may not have gone through anything for some of you guys, but you can receive some tools here to give someone some hope. And the last thing we want to do is to judge people. We make sure that if you know someone who may be going through something, who may have an embarrassing situation, you don't treat them like a hermit or they have some type of plague or disease. You encourage them. You love them. I'm holding you accountable. I'm holding you accountable, and I can, because I've gone through some things that were so terrible until I'll never forget once giving my testimony openly in church once. And my aunt, she was in the audience. And she knew what had happened to me as a child, but she never came to rescue me. I was just a topic across their dinner table. So when she heard me give the testimony piece by piece, she actually cringed in her seat because it was some kind of a conviction there because, really we are brothers and sisters keepers, And so for you to know someone who's gone through something and you're not doing anything about it, you're just as guilty. So before we take this little break, I just want to encourage you to let you know that the family with Tracey means just that. God said, who are my family? Those who do the will of my Father. So we want you to be connected. So after this short break, we'll talk more. Welcome back. Before I go into my own personal testimony, I just want to give you some history about myself. I am Tracey. Some call me Tenacious Tracey. I'm a wife to a wonderful man. I have 8 children, 6 sons and 2 daughters. I have 17 grandbabies. And I have a host of sisters and brothers in Christ. And along the way, along my journey in life, God has blessed me with an array of mentors who have encouraged me, who have given me hope, who have looked at my situations and encouraged me and told, you don't stop here, you keep going, keep it moving, keep it moving. And it had not been for God sending wonderful people in my life, I don't know where I would be. And so just to rewind and just to give you some of my testimonies. Growing up in a house where there was 4 girls and me being the youngest. I was the youngest everything, the youngest cousin, the youngest daughter, the youngest person in the neighborhood, and it was not a good feeling. However, I had 3 personal goals for myself. One was to go to the 7th grade. That meant I was on my way to junior high, where all the other females in my family had gone. 2, receive a training bra. That meant that I was physically evolving to womanhood. And 3, to get my period. However, my plan was delayed over and over again. Because we lived in a very dysfunctional household, my sisters began to have babies and situations and in and out of jail and just all kinds of things in our household until it delayed me. Never forget, my sisters were having so many babies so fast until one year I had to literally sit out of school and I failed in the 5th grade. It was so embarrassing. We lived in a very nice neighborhood. However, my mom couldn't afford it, so she had to work 3 jobs. And she had to move a stepdad in there who came with his own set of dysfunctional issues and his own set of dysfunctional children who had been broken before they got there. So we had mess on top of mess. I was so ashamed, dropping out, and even though we lived in a nice neighborhood, we looked impoverished because the poverty mentality followed us. So having to fail in the 1st grade, 5th grade was not fun. And so in addition to that, then the stepbrothers would come over the weekend, and because we were young and black and they were high yellow and all this and that, it was not fun to hear them call us nappy-headed black, me and my other sister. We didn't know we were beautiful, but we were told that. That was instilled in us. And what we didn't know is that while they were beating us down and tearing down our character, they were setting us up to abuse us. So after receiving the idea of me failing in the 5th grade, now we have this set of stepbrothers who are over just beating us down and dumbing us down. Then they have to come and live with us over the summer. And I did get a training bra. Let me say that. That's the second goal. What happened is that I never forget, people in my household would get drunk all the time. We had weekend specials. Never know who would be beat up or who check was stolen or what boyfriend would come over. All kinds of madness and mayhem. So one of the stepbrothers was gay because he had been abused by one of his biological brothers. And so I never forget, people were either drunk, intoxicated, or at work that morning when I woke up, losing my virginity to my stepbrother. Horrible situation. And it stunned me. It stunned me. No one was there for me to talk to. And even when people did surface, they went back to their normal routine of getting drunk and high. And it was just a horrible situation. I never forget wishing it in my mind to just go away. Just go, just let it not be so. And he would just still come over and everything. And what I did know is that my other sister, who was 14 months older than me, she had been impacted or was in a sexual relationship with his younger brother. She was older than me, but so with that being said, I'll never forget one morning my mom was lucid and she was sober. She was making a cup of coffee and she looked at me and she said, "Tracy." I said, "Ma'am." She said, "Are you pregnant?" I said, "I don't know." At the time, I was 13 years old. Had barely been having my cycle at the time. And I was just stunned. I just holding my breath to see what happened next. Things got quiet. The next thing I know, my second older sister would come and talk to me and ask me questions. And then finally, she took me on a field trip. She and I went to McDonald's. And from there, we went to a clinic. They never had conversation with me. I was just following along. We got to the clinic, and when we got there, the technician examined me, and that person had a conversation with my sister. Again, I'm not including the conversation. And I did hear the technician say this here, that she is too far gone. Didn't know what that meant, but my sister took me home, had a conversation with my mom, quiet conversation. Again, I was not included. Afterwards, all hell broke loose in my house. Because at that point, I guess they realized that Tracey was pregnant, she's 13, and this madness has got to stop. And because of you guys being crazy, that this child has been abused and we need to figure out who did it. And so they finally figured it out. It busted up our household. Me and my mom moved out to live with my other sister who had her own array of issues with her 6 kids. And so I never forget being having to not make it fully to the 7th grade. I had only been in the 7th grade for a little while before this happened. So they pulled me out of school. They hid me. They hid me in my sister's house, and my mom was there with me, and she didn't know what to do, and so she was just fell into a drunken stupor. And so I never forget being in my sister's house, and when I had my baby, he was a preemie because I was too little to even develop fully to even bring forth a full child. And so I had my baby, and he was a preemie, and the doctors was telling my mom again, I'm not in a conversation, that he may not make it. And if you do make it, it may be a lot of personal, physical issues, you know. I couldn't even hear that. I definitely blocked that out of my mind because I had a baby. I didn't care what the situation was. This was my baby. He was beautiful. He loved me. He came from me. And nothing was going to separate us. And so I was spending the night at the hospital. My mom and my sister still had their own set of issues. And so it was like I didn't even exist at the time. But my mom was still worried. She had had a child when she was young, around 15, and that child died. And so I can tell that she would come to me to not build up my hopes about my baby. And I remember right before the last time I went to the hospital to visit my baby, she told me, well, don't get your hopes up too much, you know, because anything can happen. She was trying to keep me from being hurt if something happened to my baby. But went to the hospital, stayed out there about 15 hours. I was so tired, rode the bus home, received a phone call from the hospital, and my son's doctor said, your son is ready to go home, Miss Lawson. All he needs is the tender, loving care of his mom. That was just so wonderful to me. I didn't know what to do. So I went and got my baby. When I went and got my baby, I hugged my baby, and I just looked at him like a little toy, but he was mine. Regardless of what happened or how he was conceived, he was mine. He still is. So I'm a proud mom. I've been a mom since I was 3 days after I turned 14. It was a hard situation, but it was a situation. It was my situation. And so we're going to take another break. When I come back, I'm going to tell you how my situation fit into a normal situation. Welcome back. I told you before our break that I was going to tell you about how a 14-year-old baby fit into normal settings. Well, unfortunately, I can't. My life was anything but normal. And I'm going to tell you why. Some of you may already know if you've experienced being a teen mom. I was extremely young, and you know that your peers look at you crazy. And people make up rumors. And not only that, they become very creative. And so because no one ever really believed the fact that my gay brother would have got me pregnant because they just didn't believe that, well, I had to deal with that. Family members had rumors. And they pretty much really socially and physically left me and my baby for dead. My mom was struggling a whole lot. My sisters were still having their own extreme personal issues. They have to tell their own story. My story stood alone. And so with that being said, I couldn't return back to school and to drop out in the 8th grade. I barely finished the 7th grade, but my mom and stepdaddy, because at the time now we're back into the home, my mom and stepdaddy realized that no one was going to quit work to take care of my baby. The child care system was different then than what it is today. You would appreciate it today if you made a comparison. However, I had to opt out and drop out in the 8th grade, and it was very depressing. I'll tell you right now, when I'm watching my peers in my neighborhood that I grew up with doing things that normal teens do, watching them move from one grade level to the next, I had my baby. I was on the inside looking out. And in addition to that, a baby is a baby. He needed all the tender loving care of a mom and a dad. He only had a 14-year-old mom. You know, when I look at my child now, it blessed me on how good God is and how his mercy and His grace was sufficient for my son to survive a 14-year-old mom. I have been there from day one, and I will always be mom. So, to move farther into my story, as I grew older, I accepted the fact that I would probably never go back to school in the 8th grade. So, I tried to get a job. It didn't work. No transportation again, no child care. I tried to do normal things. Didn't fit in with my normal friends or guys who may have been my age because I had never had a chance to really go fully through puberty. And so I never had a real boyfriend during that time. And then if a guy that may have liked me, of course, he's going to push back because she got a baby and what happened with that situation? I had to live through all that. So I'm going to tell you, even though the devil meant it for bad, God meant it for good because I learned to walk through humility through those years. See, there's nothing that has ever happened to me that I'm ever embarrassed about because I have had to learn through the Word of God and through the love of God that it was at no fault of my own. But He loves me deep and wide and long and regardless of whatever. He is so loving that He can cover everything. The Word of God says that love can cover a multitude of sin. It can also heal where others have hurt. Oh, God is so good. And so to move further with my story, things were rocky. I didn't fit in a normal setting. Finally met this one guy who seemed to like me. I was very happy about that. He was from the military, a few years older than me. He knew about my situation. He accepted me and my son. And voila, we got married. It's very excited, very happy. But unfortunately, during the time, we had to move in with my mom together. And at that time, she had become such an alcoholic that my stepdad left. My sisters were doing their own thing. They had abandoned my mom. I was abandoned. And she lost the house. She lost the house we lived in for almost 20 years. And so with that being said, we had to be dispersed. In addition to that, this wonderful man that I thought that came in to save my life, what happened was he was wanted for a heinous crime. I dare not mention it because it's his story, his testimony, but he was away. He had to be locked up for more than 10 years. That was embarrassing. So to add coal to the fire, when we had to be relocated, me and my mom, to find somewhere to live, it was even more humiliating for her than for me. But I had two babies. And so when it was time for us to find somewhere to live, family members didn't want me. I had one baby by my stepbrother. You know, they said, so I said. And I had another baby by this guy who went to jail for this terrible thing that was all in the newspaper. So in addition to that, I bounced around. And finally, I got into emergency housing. When I got into emergency housing, I didn't realize that it was temporary. I was just glad to have someone to stay with me and my babies. However, I did find jobs. I worked really hard. My mom had to live in a place that was very uncomfortable with her twin sister, sleeping in a bed with her adult niece because she had nowhere else to go. And so I never forget working so hard and earning enough money that I was able to get a place to stay. And I went to get my mom. That was the first thing I did. And I said, Mom, I never forget she was drunk and she was just asleep. And she said, what is it, Trace? I can't help you. I said, I got some keys. I have to go to work tonight. I need you to come and take it. And she jumped out of the bed. She said, what? I said, I got us a place to stay. Just go and take care of my babies and I'll do the work. And that blessed me. Even in the midst of everything I've gone through, I want you to encourage someone right now. You don't stop living because people throw things at you because life come at you. Remember I told you that this show is going to impact people who have been dealing with the most dysfunctional issues that was meant to kill, steal, and to destroy them. When your hope is destroyed, you shut down. It's like a car running out of gas and oil. You got to keep it moving. You got to keep hope, and you got to keep joy. For the joy of the Lord is your strength. You got to remember that. And so I'm happy as I reflect over my time of going through a net era that God still was able to throw hope, and I gleaned from it. And so my mom and I, we moved together, and she told me these words after a couple of months of us staying together. She said, my baby could work hard enough with her situations to get us a place to stay. I can at least stop drinking. My mom started her sobriety at that time. And so our relationship became new, a relationship that she and I had never had before. We're going to take another short break, and when I return, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that. All right. So now that my mom and I have a different relationship, I have my mom to myself. That was the first time in all of my life that I can ever remember developing a relationship with my mom without her being drunk, without her being impacted by something that my sister did, or her recovering from a beatdown from my stepdad. It was wonderful because I didn't know this woman. I loved her so much on this new level. And the only thing was is that I had really raised myself, and she didn't know how to redirect me. At the time, I was about 19, almost 20. And it felt so good to have a mom around, even to have someone to help me with my babies. I had a beautiful daughter by my first husband and my son, and they were close, and they loved my mom, and my mom loved them. And even then, my sisters would come over and squat in my home with all of their problems while I worked 2 jobs and I attended school. I was hungry for success. I was so hungry for it, and it depressed me. It depressed me so bad until I began to act out, because remember, I never had an opportunity to go through puberty and act out as an adolescent. And so I started hanging out with crazy folks. You guys have to read my book. This is just a sliver of my testimony. See, one thing is a result of another. And so I was still dysfunctional because my situation as a teen mom had never been resolved. So I started acting crazy. You know, sometimes, in most cases, when we go through our own personal struggles or that somebody have done what we've been put upon, truth be told, when God cleaned us up and all the other stuff has gone and the dust has settled, you still have to deal with yourself, and no one is perfect. And so it didn't help with the fact that I was still scarred and impacted twice. And so I never forget that I got so desperate of attention because I was just lost at the time. The only way that I can hang around my sisters, I had to do what they were doing. And they were extreme drug addicts. I never forget one time going to my sister who's very close to me in age. And she was getting high. And I took my welfare check and I took it to her one day. And I said, listen, I want to hang out with you. Let's buy some works or whatever. And she bought that crack cocaine pipe. And she went and bought the crack cocaine from the best dealer that she knew. And she started me up and she lit me up like a firecracker. And I never would forget that very first time that I put my mouth on that pipe and she lit me up, that I was addicted instantly. When I tell you that Satan looked for broken vessels to fill, I was so broken until he filled me up instantly. I couldn't believe it, but God always have a ram in the bush, because I never will forget this here. My first hit, I never will forget. I've forgotten a lot of things by way of my drug addiction, but I won't forget this here. I prayed and I asked God, and I didn't know it was a prayer then, God, please don't let me be here more than 10 years. Well, I want you to know that God will honor prayers. He is so good and so just, because I was addicted one day shy of 10 years. I started getting high on New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, 10 years almost from that day. I was delivered and filled with the Holy Ghost. I will never forget. And he is so awesome. He protected me throughout my addiction. But there are many times that I should have been dead. Many times, I've even had some incidents where I would go with my sisters to shoplift so we can support our habits. I would be the only one to go to jail, or because I didn't know how to shoplift. You find yourself in some situations that is not your forte. Even in sin and even in crime, that was not. I didn't even like getting high, but I was addicted. I became addicted instantly, and it was a miserable time. It was a dark age for me. Now, what hurt me so much is that while I was going through my addiction, my children were being abused. I didn't even know it. Yes, and it was years later that I found out about it. And it was then that I realized I had become my mother. And I never realized what she had gone through, the reason that she neglected us, and the reason she escaped with drugs. I had to remember I had 3 sisters who were older than me, and a stepdad. It's a whole lot of things that happened to her that I was even too young for her to even discuss, or probably for me to understand and process. And so, but at the same time, my mom had been clean for a few years now. At the age of 21, I started my drug addiction. My mom died. While we were in the crack house getting high, we had a phone call from the hospital, and it said that your mom had a cyst over her right eye, and she was going to outpatient surgery, and she didn't tell anyone. She told us, she may have told us she was going back and forth to the doctor, but she never told us she was having outpatient surgery, and we probably wouldn't even know what that meant, and that was the least of our concerns. They did the procedure, they drained the cyst, and she had 3 to 4 massive strokes behind her. She had signed consent papers because she didn't think we were responsible enough. They said if anything happened to her, take off life support. That's exactly what they did. Or to move forward, they poked and poked until she was no more. And I'm going to tell you, in my situation, it was getting deeper and deeper and darker. My mom was gone. My mom was gone. And even though she had not been a very good mom in my beginnings, she was still my mom. And my sisters were mean to me. And I don't think they meant to be mean to me. Life was mean to them. Life was extremely mean to them. And so they were mean to me. It took me years and years to understand that they were going through the dark valleys that I lived in right along with them. And there was no love in any of that. And so my mom was gone. And so life was rocky. In those 10 years of my drug addiction with my children, I felt like a motherless child. And I did the best I could to cleave to my children. But God is so good, because that is not the end of my story. That is just one season. That is just one situation. But I want you all to know that God has His thing, that He was moving from one glory to the next. He was moving from 0 to 100. And if you don't know Him, He will give you an opportunity to know Him. Even though you may be in situations of sin, you may have been born in sin and shaped and formed in iniquity, but there's a God who's waiting on the other side for you. He will call you. And so when we come back from this last break, I'm going to tell you just a little bit more of my story so that you can be hopeful. So stay tuned. All right, we're winding down to the end of the story. I just want to follow up and let you all know the end result of this situation, because like I said, that my life has been made up of many dysfunctional situations. But this particular situation, it doesn't have a real bad ending at all. It has a wonderful ending because of God's divine powers, His love, and His mercy. My son that I had at the age of 14, 3 days before I turned 14, is a wonderful guy. Matter of fact, I'm going to invite him on a show one day. But my son today has a wife, a wonderful wife, a wonderful, mighty woman of God. She has been that helped me to build him up to be a man after God's own heart. He has 5 wonderful children, 4 beautiful daughters, and 1 son that's named after him. And when I tell you this young guy here, he amazes me every day. He has his own painting company, HVAC company. He is a minister in the church. He is the oldest of my 8 children. And not only that, he is a mentor. He's had an opportunity to work mentoring people or young guys with mental illness, and young guys who have been impacted by a life, been raised by a teen mom. And so, you know, when God delivers you from something, he will turn around and make you a minister unto that thing. And he's doing the same thing with both me and my son and my family. The next show that we will have, I'm going to have the love of my life to come and give you his story, Keith Millbrook Sr. That is the next chapter of my life. God, in the middle, smack middle of my drug addiction, God was faithful and just and strategic to place a man in my life who was going through the same thing I was going through, but he allowed for us to walk out of the situation together. We've accomplished many things. I don't want to spoil it for you guys. You got to be present for the next show, because you're not going to want to miss this here. It still blows my mind. And so as we wind down, I just want to encourage someone. I don't care what your situation is. Nothing is too hard for God. I don't care how embarrassing it may be. Do not be afraid of the faces of men. You understand? God would use anything to encourage you, anybody. You just have to glean from the hope of God and keep it moving. You cannot let those things that Satan throw at you to kill, steal, and destroy you to stop you from walking out your purpose-driven life. I have had an opportunity to accomplish many things because of God bringing me through. Matter of fact, the experiences that I have endured has made me strong enough to help bring some others out. So God sent me in various places that other people are not qualified to go. And you know, I am honored. It is an honor even for me to sit here with you, the family with Tracey. I'm excited about this here. We're going to talk about more dysfunctional issues. I want you to return for the next show. So thanks again for joining the family with Tracey. See you next time.